Welcome to video number 9, the Native Americans. After all we have been learning about the founding principles of this nation, about the respect for individual freedom and self-determination, how could we go so wrong when it came to the treatment of the original inhabitants of this continent? First, we have to acknowledge a historical fact. At the time of the founding of the nation, the Native American tribes were seen as having a status akin to nation states. Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution says, quote, "The Congress shall have power to regulate commerce with foreign nations and among the several states and with the Indian tribes." They were granted self-rule and territorial independence. It wasn't until Andrew Jackson's time that the distorted concept of manifest destiny was introduced to justify the atrocities committed against the native peoples. The explosive increase of population due to the immigration from Europe caused the push for the expansion to the West. The treaties that the founders had signed with the native nations were ignored. The collusion of government, religion, and pseudoscience under the banner of manifest destiny justified the slaughter and relocation of the savages, quote unquote. The distorted thinking went like this: the government has the power and the divine duty, because the church says so, to expand and conquer all the territories to the west. Science, quote unquote, confirms that the Indians are an inferior race of brutes and savages that need to be civilized. This is a prime example of how the combination of greed, disregard for true ideals and principles, unbridled state power, and the distorted use of religion and science can lead to the justification of unspeakable evil acts. This chapter of our history does not, however, invalidate the founding principles. It actually underlines the dangers that come from disregarding them. The stain in our national history has a lot in common with a much more recent period in history, when the concepts of race supremacy and extermination justified the most heinous atrocities perpetrated by man against man in modern times. So, at the time of the founders, the Indian tribes were seen as independent nations. The collusion of government, church, and science under manifest destiny allowed the atrocities perpetrated against the native peoples. This situation underlines the danger of disregarding the founding principles. Side note on another topic: what about women in our history? Even though in most respects it absolutely pales in comparison with slavery and what was done to Native Americans, there is something to be said about the treatment of women as second-class citizens throughout part of our history. Again, this is something we inherited from Europe. It has nothing to do with the foundational principles of this nation. The system itself allowed the necessary progress to take place in its own due time. When the views of society changed and the amendment process embedded in the Constitution allowed the necessary changes that have brought women to the equal status they enjoy today. See you on the next one.